wanting to wrestle smaller opponents after my back and shoulder stem cell procedures, and in which we did do that last night with AR Fox. And I think to date, since I've left WWE, that is the most fun I've had in the ring.
Really?
He might be my favorite opponent yet.
Like ever?
He's up there.
He's up there. Okay.
And not because he's just talented, but he's very humble and respectful, and just he's so easy to talk to, and he has ideas.
So before we get into that, because I want to get back to that, because basically, and you explained this before, and I want to get into the Colt stuff because it was pretty iconic or I don't want to say iconic. It was kind of a moment for you and Colt to kind of sit down and address everything. Before we get to that and we talk about Fox, because you're fighting this, I don't want to say this image of you, and do I dare say limited ability kind of comes with that, where you haven't had the proving ground to go, hey, I can do this and I can do this well.
Yeah.
So this weekend was kind of a focal point. I can't wait to put the match up. Last night was incredible when you got to work with AR Fox and,
Thank you.
and work with, for the most part, leaving WWE. And we're friends, and we get drunk on a podcast and talk about stuff. But when we're booking these cards and doing all the wrestling appearance, all these different promoters, well, they want to put him with your local big guy. And there's only so much you can do with those matches.
And we talked about this with WWE. That was one of the things with me, especially my last couple of years there, is I got paired up a lot with Big Show, Mark Henry, and Kane on live events, and it takes its toll. And that definitely did its damage to me over the day, because you got to look at that card. I was one of the guys that could pick them up regularly, and they're bigger than me. I'm the big guy, but I'm able to pick them up and do these feats of strength. And you got to add on top of that, the 3-hour weight training sessions every week, and then going there and performing. And when I'm wrestling these bigger guys, I'm taking a lot of abuse in those matches too, and picking them up, and that's a lot of pressure. And I love
you're known as strong guy. You have to lift these behemoths
I was picking up 2 people for a while, and so it was just one of those things that. And I think that the attraction is for promoters. Well, we could put him with our big guy, and the problem with that is, for me, it just gets fucking boring after a while. And I've done it time and time again. I like wrestling different styled guys because it allows me to do different things.
And I could say one thing too, because there are bigger guys, like when you were working with Rusev, who on the independents would be considered, he is a big dude.
Yes.
But there's a different dynamic between that and the guys on the independents, because Rusev is so extremely talented, right?
Yes.
And a lot of these guys that may not be the giants, like as heavy as a Mark Henry or as big as a Big Show, but if you're working a guy like, say, a guy of Rusev's size, which are on the independents, they probably don't have that skill level, so you can't have a dynamic
and that's
match.
not a knock on them. That's just there's a difference between the big leagues and the minor leagues. And again, I talk about conditioning all the time and how important it is. And that's one thing I've discovered wrestling some of the different guys since I left, that it's really a gamble of what you're going to get. And when you're up there and you're in the WWE, everybody, because there's a lot of money on the line, you take care of yourself and you make sure that you can go one way or another. And Rusev, again, is one of my favorite opponents. And a lot of these guys, and they're all good, and they all hopefully will have their moment in time. But the fact of the matter is, not everybody makes it.
Yeah. Right at that time period, right before you left, where you were working with Kalisto, and you got to those were great pairings because it was such a good dynamic. So it felt like, right when you got a chance to kind of show, hey, look at these dynamic matchups.
Yeah.
But last night, working this smaller, I don't want to say smaller, but AR Fox.
Yeah, and it was just, when I left WWE, it was chose not to sign the contract that they had offered me, as great as some things were on there, and just more unhappy over, again, everything as far as creative, but a lot more than that, and the other things that had gone on. It didn't feel like the right time to leave as far as matchup, because I really felt like I was hitting my stride.
So you were having fun in the ring, but weren't
live events. I was having as much fun as I ever was there. It was just everything outside of that, and there just comes a point in time where you have to know what you want. You have to take a chance, and I just was looking ahead, and I just knew I had to get out of there with everything that had happened, and I had to leave. It didn't matter. I couldn't stay, and.
So now you get a chance with AR Fox to
with
go,
AR Fox,
an independent darling.
Last night, it felt like for the first time my first real independent match, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because and I was telling Colt Cabana this at your show yesterday, that my back and shoulder, I was not expecting that to be an issue when I left. They were bothering me, and we've talked about this multiple times on the show, but when I got my ear and nose fixed when I left from injuries my first year in wrestling and left them alone for 10 years, I thought my back and shoulder would kind of heal up, taking a few months off.
So you figured, okay, you're a full-time guy. Now you're not going to be, you've made your decision.
I have 3 or 4 months off to get my ear and nose fixed.
And everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, and
it wasn't.
What happened, it went completely the opposite way, and I never felt worse. Getting out of bed in the morning, just everything, I was like, what is going on? Well, that was around the point where I got to start. We're wrestling again. We have bookings. We have things already we committed to. And I told Colt, I was so unhappy because my back hurt so bad, and I just kind of grouped it all together with wrestling is hurting me, and I truly, and everything's been the focal point with the nutrition company and the podcast and the book and doing these other things, that it was, everything always goes into wrestling still every time. I always put everything into it, but I was just unhappy, and then getting this stem cell treatment and finally feeling good again. And like, this is my back, I told you, it's been like 9 or 10 weeks, and my back feels amazing.
So you feel like a young buck again.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten, at 35 years old, I'm just thankful to be alive during this period where we have stem cells, rather than getting surgery and possibly having to start slowing down because of this lifestyle. I'm getting a whole new head start again, and a fresh start, and knowing what I know. And last night was like that first night, like the Ryback regeneration. I felt really alive in there, and like never felt more confident. And it's good to be in there with a guy